They say the most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves to feel safe. I walked into that clinic thinking my biggest problem was a persistent migraine. I walked out knowing that every person I loved was a stranger, and my home was no longer a sanctuary, it was a trap. The waiting room smelled of stale coffee and lemon bleach. It's a scent that's supposed to mean clean, but to me, it always smelled like bad news. I sat in chair 17, scrolling through my phone, checking a grocery list my husband had sent me just an hour ago. Milk, eggs, detergent, normal things, boring things, things that belong to a woman who isn't about to have her entire life set on fire. May, Dr. Evans is ready for you. I stood up, smoothing out my dress. I felt fine mostly, just a little tired, a little dizzy. I figured it was stress. When I entered the exam room, Dr. Evans didn't look up immediately. She was staring at my chart, her back turned to me. The hum of the fluorescent lights above felt like a physical weight on my shoulders. "Everything okay, Doc?" I joked, though my voice sounded thin. When she finally turned around, the air left the room. Dr. Evans had been my doctor for 10 years. She'd seen me through flu seasons and twisted ankles, but the woman standing in front of me looked like she'd seen a ghost. Her face was unnervingly pale, and her hands, usually steady enough for surgery, were trembling as she gripped my file. She didn't ask me to sit on the table. She didn't reach for her stethoscope. Instead, she walked to the door, turned the lock with a soft click, and then turned the faucet on full blast. The sound of rushing water filled the small room, masking our voices. "May," she whispered, leaning so close I could smell the peppermint on her breath. "I need you to listen to me very carefully, and I need you to act like we're talking about your blood work." My heart did a slow, painful roll in my chest. "What are you talking about?" She didn't answer. She grabbed a prescription pad, her pen scratching frantically against the paper. She wasn't writing a dosage. She was writing a death sentence for the life I knew. She ripped the page off, folded it twice, and pressed it into my palm. Her eyes were pleading, filled with a terror that made my blood turn to ice. "Don't read it until you're in the hallway," she breathed. "And May, whatever you do, don't go home." The heavy door of the exam room clicked shut behind me. The hallway felt miles long. I kept my head down, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Don't look suspicious," I told myself. "Just walk." I slipped into the public restroom, my breath coming in jagged gasps. I locked the stall door, my hands shaking so violently I almost dropped the paper into the toilet. I unfolded it. The ink was smudged, written in a frantic hurry. It didn't say take 2 pills. It said, "Your blood work shows high levels of synthetic sedatives. You're being poisoned slowly. Do not touch the water at home. They are watching you through the nursery monitor. Run." The air vanished from the stall. Poisoned? By who? Mark? My sister. They were the only ones who fixed my tea every night. The migraines, the dizziness, it wasn't stress. It was them. Suddenly, my phone vibrated in my pocket. The vibration felt like an electric shock. I pulled it out. It was a text from my husband, Mark. "Hey, honey, the doctor's GPS shows you've been there a long time. Everything okay? I'm waiting for you in the parking lot. Let's go home." My blood turned to liquid nitrogen. He was outside. He was tracking my phone. He wasn't waiting to take me home. He was waiting to take me back to my cage. I looked at the tiny window at the top of the restroom wall. It was too small to climb through. I had to walk out the front door, past his car, without him seeing the terror in my eyes. I took the note, ripped it into 100 tiny pieces, and flushed them away. I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes wide. I had to be an actress now. My life depended on a lie. I stepped out of the bathroom and saw the glass front doors of the clinic. Outside, sitting in his black SUV, was Mark. He was staring at the clinic doors, his face unreadable, his hand resting on the steering wheel. He waved, a slow, rhythmic wave that felt like a thrill. I stood behind the tinted glass of the clinic lobby, my shadow merging with the dark corners. Mark's SUV was idling, a low growl I could almost feel in my teeth. He looked at his watch, then back at the door. He was losing patience. The GPS, if I moved, he'd see the blue dot on his screen move. If I stayed, he'd come in. I looked around the lobby. A group of elderly patients was waiting for the shuttle. An idea, desperate and thin, began to form. I ducked into the pharmacy corner and grabbed a cheap, oversized sun hat and a floral shawl from the gift display. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone. I needed to leave it, but I couldn't just drop it. I saw a young teenager sitting on a bench, scrolling through TikTok, his backpack open next to him. With a silent prayer, I walked past him and took a massive risk. I slipped my phone into the side pocket of his bag. He was wearing headphones. He didn't feel a thing. 2 minutes later, the City Express bus pulled up to the curb, blocking Mark's view of the front door for exactly 15 seconds. Now, I whispered to myself. I wrapped the shawl around my shoulders, pulled the hat low, and stepped out into the heat. My skin crawled. I felt Mark's eyes scanning the crowd, looking for May, the woman in the bright dress. He didn't see the old lady hobbling behind the group of retirees. As I reached the bus steps, I heard a car door slam. Thud. My heart stopped. I didn't look back. I climbed the steps, my legs feeling like lead. Through the bus window, I saw the teenager with the backpack hop onto a bicycle and pedal furiously in the opposite direction. On Mark's phone, the blue dot, my dot, was now moving away at 20 miles per hour. The bus doors hissed shut. As we pulled away, I saw Mark through the glass. He wasn't looking at the bus. He was staring at his phone, a confused, angry scowl darkening his face as he put the SUV into gear to chase a ghost. I was free, but I had no phone, no money, and nowhere to go. And the poison was still in my blood. The bus dropped me off in a part of town I barely recognized, a strip of crumbling motels and 24-hour diners. My head was spinning. The synthetic sedatives Dr. Evans warned me about were kicking in. My vision blurred at the edges, and my limbs felt like they were made of wet cement. I checked into a seedy motel using the emergency cash I kept tucked in my bra, money I'd hidden months ago. A gut instinct I hadn't even realized I had. Once the door was bolted, I collapsed against it. I needed answers. I used the motel's ancient, dusty computer in the lobby, claiming I'd lost my luggage. With trembling fingers, I logged into my private cloud storage files my husband didn't know existed. I started looking through my late father's estate records. My father had died a year ago in a freak accident. At the time, I was too buried in grief to look at the fine print. But now, looking at the scanned insurance documents, the truth hit me like a physical blow. There was a trust fund, $5 million, but there was a catch, a survivorship clause. If I died without an heir, the entire fortune wouldn't go to my husband. It would revert back to my sister Claire and her struggling pharmaceutical firm. My heart went cold. Mark wasn't working alone. He was working for my sister. The vitamins Claire had sent me every month from her lab, the special tea Mark brewed to help me sleep, they were killing me together. They didn't want a quick death. A quick death triggers an autopsy. They wanted a natural decline, a tragic illness. Suddenly, a notification popped up on the bottom of the screen. An email had just been sent to my sister's account from an unknown sender. The subject line: Target is off-grid. GPS signal lost in the North District. Initiate Plan B. They knew I was gone, and Plan B didn't sound like they were coming to talk. I didn't stay in the motel. I knew Plan B meant they were already checking every cheap room in a 5-mile radius. Instead, I went to the one place they'd never expect me to return to, my father's old summer cabin. It was remote, disconnected, and technically abandoned. Using a burner phone I bought at a gas station, I sent a single text to Mark. I know everything. Meet me at the cabin alone if you want the inheritance papers. If I see a cop or Claire, I hit send on the email to the district attorney. It was a bluff. I had no papers, and the email was just a draft. But greed is a powerful leash. 2 hours later, headlights cut through the woods. The black SUV pulled up, its engine idling like a growling beast. Mark stepped out, looking polished and concerned, the perfect morning husband. But in his hand, he wasn't carrying a white flag. He was carrying a medical syringe. "May," he called out, his voice echoing in the clearing. "You're sick. You're hallucinating. Let me help you." I stood on the porch, hidden in the shadows. "Help me like you helped Dad," I shouted back. He stopped. The mask slipped for a second. His face twisted into something ugly, something sharp. "Your father was an obstacle. You, May? You were supposed to be easy. We just wanted you to go to sleep." Suddenly, another car pulled up. Claire. She didn't have Mark's patience. She stepped out, her designer heels clicking on the gravel. "Enough of this drama, Mark," Finish it. The lawyers are calling. They moved toward the porch together, confident because they thought I was stumbling and drugged. What they didn't know was that I'd spent the last hour rigging the old generator. As they stepped onto the wet grass near the porch railing, I gripped the lever. The grass was soaked from the evening dew. As Mark and Claire stepped into the perimeter of the cabin's porch, they were exactly where I needed them. "One more step, Mark," I said, my voice steady for the first time all day. "Or what, May? You'll fall over?" Claire sneered, reaching into her bag for her phone. "You're a mess. We'll tell the police you had a breakdown and tried to burn the place down." I didn't argue. I pulled the lever on the generator. The floodlights I had repositioned earlier didn't just turn on, they blinded them. But the real surprise wasn't the light. It was the sound. From the trees, two police cruisers accelerated, their blue and red lights slicing through the dark. I hadn't just texted Mark before I left the motel. I had called Dr. Evans. She hadn't just given me a note. She had called the authorities the second I left her office. The burner phone text I sent Mark was a digital breadcrumb for the police to follow. Mark dropped the syringe, the glass shattering on the gravel. Claire tried to run back to the car, but she was surrounded. "You're making a mistake," Claire screamed as the officers forced her to the ground. "She's sick. She's delusional." Actually, Dr. Evans's voice came from behind the lead officer. "I have the toxicology report right here. And I have the video from the exam room where you, Mark, were seen tampering with her migraine medication last month during a joint consultation." As they were handcuffed and led away, the weight that had been crushing my chest for months finally lifted. 6 months later, the cabin is no longer a place of fear. It's my home. The trust fund is being used to fund a clinic for victims of domestic and medical abuse. My vision is clear. The poison is gone. And the only person I have to look out for in the mirror is myself. I never went home after the doctor's appointment. And that was the best decision of my life.